this country cannot survive unless it goes back to traditional American norms, and the nuclear family has to be the dominant paradigm. That doesn't mean you oppress gays or single parents or illegitimacy, but you have to have a critical mass that are a nuclear family, and you have to reproduce the species.
America's foundation is shaking. When Victor warns about survival, it isn't theory, it's a reality check. Families are weak, cities unstable, and culture confused. What follows is a roadmap: how violence is excused, how institutions feed it, and how we answer without losing ourselves. This isn't abstract anymore. It's urgent.
I thought it was really courageous because her husband had just been killed, the children are orphaned, she was in a state of shock. But she wanted to add the additional message that this is not the end, but it's the beginning of a next phase in his honor, a celebration of him.
Responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. But they should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country.
And indeed, after her talk, 18,000 people reportedly signed up for Turning Point. And you listening to her, I'm not going to make any predictions, but she has that same ability to communicate that Charlie did. So I don't know what will be the future, but I think she'll play a prominent role in it. And it's worldwide. There were these huge demonstrations all over the world, in South Korea and in Europe. And you get the impression that that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was juxtaposed to these awful murders we've seen of Arania Zarutska, and by the way, DeCarlos Brown, we found out his whole family are felons, brother's a killer too, and they've all been revolving in and out of the criminal justice system. We had that horrible murder we talked about the poor veterinarian, and then we had this couple in your area, Queens, that were killed, butchered, their home. And I think people are just saying, you know what? I'm tired of all of it. I'm just tired of all of the lies. And we're not supposed to talk about Antifa. We're not supposed to talk about all these 403Cs or 403C3s that are funding these groups. And we're not supposed to talk about all these people in the military, in the bureaucracy, teachers, professors who are gloating over his death. We're not supposed to say anything. We're supposed to say both sides, both sides. It's not both sides. And you can see it's not both sides by how many times people mention January 6th, where there wasn't one person violently killed except a Trump supporter, versus 35 that were killed in 5 months of looting, riot, mayhem, 1,500 officers attacked, all leftist, all condoned. Very few of those arrested were ever indicted, and almost none were convicted and in prison. So I think everybody's tired of all of it. And it's starting a massive, and maybe she and others like her can ride the crest of the wave and direct it in a positive way. But whatever is going on, I think the left really has made a mistake.
Erica's courage showed strength. The online gloating showed rot. That contrast is why people are waking up. For too long, violence has been excused when it fits the left's agenda. Peaceful protest, they say, even as cities burn. That double standard is fuel, and it's spreading.
As soon as he died, all these people came out and gloated and just... They weren't even the leftist Antifa people. They were those people, but they were teachers, they were professors, they were military officers. It was just, and they all thought they could just say this, and it would be mainstream. The internet creates this cowardly culture where no one knows you or gets to you or confronts you, or you don't face anybody, and then you can act very brave with these atrocious postings. And then, in addition to that, it was just the news. I mean, Katie Tour we talked about, and Matthew Dowd, and Jasmine Crockett immediately started talking about herself. Oh, I need protection. No, you were one of the instigators of the hate speech. You couldn't finish a talk without demonizing white people. That's all you do, all the time. And then, I get so angry when they say, well, Donald Trump said he shouldn't have said it, but he said if he shot somebody's supporters, that was not advocating that. He said if that's how weird the support is for me. It's not like Gavin Newsom that said we're going to get these SO and bloody them up or punch them in the mouth. We're going to punch Trump in the mouth. Joe Biden, semi-fascist. We're going to take you behind the gym and beat you up. So it's been a different, this desperate effort by Nancy Pelosi and others to contextualize all this. But when you look at Steve Scalise and the Republican leadership that was attacked, you looked at the young couple at the Jewish Museum in D.C., you look at Luigi Mangione, that whole debacle. You look at the attacks on Rand Paul. Josh Shapiro, the guy was a pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian nut. I understand there were people in Minnesota that guy that was crazy may have had right-wing sympathies, but he was appointed to a board by Tim Walz. So I don't know what he was. But it is not both sides. It's the left. Fascist, 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 fascist. Hitler, 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 Hitler. They did it with Bush, but not to the same. And that permeates the atmosphere. And people like this nut, Tyler Robinson, who was gloating, by the way, about the killing on social media or his little chat group and saying, maybe I'll get the award or maybe my doppelganger did it. And then we have all this deviancy that we mainstream. So he's got his roommate who dresses like some kind of animal picture, furry, I guess.
He's a furry, yeah.
Yeah, whatever that is. And we're supposed to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is completely a mental disorder, but we're not supposed to say that. And so I think a lot of people are saying this country cannot survive unless it goes back to traditional American norms, and the nuclear family has to be the dominant paradigm. That doesn't mean you oppress gays or single parents or illegitimacy, but you have to have a critical mass that are a nuclear family, and you have to reproduce the species. And the blue state model and the progressive agenda is antithetical to that. Let's just face it. And it's violent. It's violent because it feels there's no consequences, that they control the law enforcement, the DAs, that they can do things. This guy doesn't really think when he shot Charlie Kirk that anything was going to happen to him. He really didn't. He thought he was either going to get away or it was just a lark. And we'll see what Utah does. Final thought real quick is, where does this madness come from? Is it the media madness? I was thinking about this, Jack. I mean, this murder took place on a campus, which was appropriate because, not in the good sense, but you trace every one of these things. The pronouns, you list your pronouns on your memo. Transgenderism is a new civil rights issue. You're a transphobe if you don't want biological males competing in female sports. All of that comes from the university. Separate dorms, separate spaces, separate graduations based on race, racial repertory admissions. California legislature just passed that again, contrary to Prop 209. That comes from critical race theory in the university. You can take almost every pathology that has been manifest either in the Palisades fire or all these killings, these interracial killings, and you can trace the genesis of it to higher education. Where else do Jews get chased into a library by people? Where else do people who beat up a Jew get an award from Harvard University? I mean, that's what it is. Where else does a professor say, you Jews get to that side of the classroom, you other people get over here? That was at Stanford where I'm speaking. So higher education has a lot to account, and that's besides the turning out these ignorant students that don't know anything after paying thousands of dollars and having the country 1.7 trillion in hock to pay these inflated costs, and then have 1.1 million foreign students who are not audited, no background check, and then they form a nucleus in many cases, whether they're Chinese nationals or people from illiberal regimes in the Middle East. They're just not audited. Whether it's espionage or whether it's anti-Semitic protests. So the campus has a lot to answer for, is what I'm trying to say.
The worst ideas don't start in the streets. They start in classrooms. Campuses teach that words are harm and that silencing is justice. If truth itself is called violence, then real violence becomes easy to justify. That's the pipeline Victor's exposing. And it explains why reality keeps getting twisted.
He's not a right-wing shooter. His parents may have been moderate Republicans, but just read what he wrote on his shell casings. It was Antifa stuff, it was trans stuff, it was sick stuff. Listen to what his roommate and people said about him. And look at his high school people knew. Everybody knew he was a left-wing, angry people. And we're going to find out if there is any connection between his trans partner and the question of a trans at the moment he shot him. That's very mysterious. I'm not a conspiracy thing, but I don't know whether he had some type of microphone or an earpiece or somebody gave him a signal, but it is a coincidence, put it that way. It could be accidental coincidence. But there is no evidence at all that he is a right-wing. He is a left-wing pro-Antifa. That's why he engraved his bullets. And his lifestyle was deeply embedded in the left. And so just stop all that. So all of these myths that promulgate about him, about it, is just disgusting.
Well, Victor, it's interesting if we get your thoughts a little more on this furry madness. I saw a video the other day of a lesbian woman who was talking about why am I a color on this flag? Why am I the L in the LGBTQ? Why am I associated with these furries? There's a cabal of them who like to be infantile, people with man-boy lovers. And Rick Grinnell went on this sometime recently, like, look, I'm a gay man. I don't want to see us have gay pride parades walking bottomless in the streets. Like why are we affiliated with these clear mental cases?
Because no one speaks out. All they have to do is say, write an op-ed and then say, we do not want to be associated with this movement. We are people who are same-sex attracted, but we're otherwise just normal citizens, and we do not like public intoxication, nudity, fornication. We don't like to have these insulting anti-religious parades that gay people do. We don't know what furry is. We don't like biological men destroying women's sport. They can do that, and maybe they will.
Yeah. Well, some of the lesbians I know who organize have protested the affiliation with trans women, whatever the hell that is, have been beaten up and have faced violence. So the trans movement and its embrace of violence is getting more and more documented every day.
I'll say one thing. Everybody says, well, there's only been 3 or 4 trans. We had the Charlotte shooter, and there was a tangential relation here, and we had the Tennessee shooter. We had another one, but there's actually been 4. And everybody said, well, see, there's been all these dozens for years. Yes, but the trans movement was not in the public mind, in the arena, until the last 5 or 6 years. So the proper diagnostic is to go back and say, when was trans mainstreamed and people became aware of it, and then see what is the percentage of people, not what you say on the university campus, but what clinical psychology said about trans dysphoria as a percentage of the demographic, and then see at that point where it became well known to people, at that point, how many of the mass shooters were trans. I don't have that answer, but I have a suspicion that scientific literature will show about 1 or 2 per 100,000 people. And once the trans movement was known of the last mass shootings, it will be higher, much higher than that demographic. And then we need a discussion on what are these neuropsychotic complications of taking very strong antidepressants with strong hormonal treatments, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, as we've had one of the fathers of a trans kid write us, and we've talked about it a couple times. It's also then immersion into a social media, as he calls it, a cult, which is a force multiplier.
Yeah, what he means by that, Jack, is that all of a sudden, if you look, the next Hollywood star is bragging that their child is trans. I mean, it's just, but in the era of, I mean, we knew that there were gay actors all the time, across time and space, and maybe they were cross-dressers, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, was that a common phenomenon among actors to have children that were trans? I don't think it was. And so I don't think these polls, an undergraduate, was it Brown or Dartmouth? I think it was Brown, said that 20% or 25% of the students thought they might consider transitioning. That's what he means when he says it's a cult.
When facts cut against the narrative wins. Killers are excused, victims are blamed. Anyone asking questions is attacked. Here's the hard truth. People deserve compassion, but policies that reward denial make chaos worse. Pretending doesn't heal. Truth does.
The LGBTQ community, mostly the trans community, I guess, they disrupted his talk, and then on spec, the diversity law officer hijacked his lecture, read a prepared statement blasting him, the guest, for incurring the wrath, and then they tried to drive him out. He had to be protectively escorted with security, and as they went out, they were yelling things like, "I hope your daughter is raped." These were Stanford law students. And so were any of them dismissed? No. And were any of them suspended? No. No. So that was what the left means when these students, when they say they believe in violence, they believe in a particular type of violence. They believe that you illegally occupy the Stanford Free Speech Zone for 4 months, and then when a small little Jewish group tries to put posters, and with permission, of all the hostages' faces, then they go and tear them down. Or they believe they walk by you when you're walking to your office and get in your face and start screaming and yelling at you. That's what they call violence. Or they believe, in the case of Antifa, they show up and they try to attack 1 or 2 people, especially speakers at campuses, etc. What they do not mean is they don't say, "I'm a student and I believe in violence, and I'm driving down to Bakersfield in a caravan with my college buddies and my Antifa strongmen, and I'm going to go into downtown Bakersfield and start attacking forms of resistance. Like, I think I'll go after the Future Farmers of America, Bakersfield. I'll go after the police." They don't do that. And you know why they don't do it. And so,
to get their hiney stomped.
Yeah, it's just like the 1970s Weatherman Underground, Symbionese Liberation Front, Black Panthers. They were all urban and they had particular targets, but they were not people who would fight back at them. And so they were all predatory. And they're very similar to that period in American history from 1880 to 1920, when we had large immigrations from Eastern Europe and from Italy and other places that were still experiencing the fallout from the 1848 revolution, or there were earlier revolutions under the Tsar, and people fled that were left-wing anarchists. And that caused sort of a nativist rebellion. Remember, it was Rome rebellion, and we're bringing in an Italian anarchist who believe the anarchist movement was very popular, Catholic. So that was kind of a nativist reaction to it. But there was a lot of violence then, as there was in the late 60s and 70s, as there is, I think, in the start now. But I just don't believe that this generation of Antifa or Black Lives Matter is going to really do what they say they do. I just don't do it. I think they realize that they've lost the public dialogue worldwide. I think you're going to see big changes in government in Europe if they allow these conservative candidates to stay on the ballot. And we'll see here too. But if you are upset about what's been happening, as we've discussed today, the answer is not to get violent. The answer, I don't even think, is to go on and make fun of people. That's bad. It's just simply to register and vote. And then the biggest thing that would honor Charlie Kirk is for one of the few times in American history would be for the end party in a first midterm of an administration. And this is kind of a first midterm of Trump's second administration, to win the House and the Senate in a big margin. We're all said that he's going to lose the House. He may lose the Senate. This happens to every president. Don't get upset. Don't let it happen. Get whole armies of young people to register and get out and vote. And just tell the Democratic Party, we're sick of you. You people have been condoning violence. You've been calling the President of the United States all these names. You lie about all of these types of shooting, and we're just tired of it. We're tired of the DAs. We're tired of the blue state model. We're tired of all of it. And we're not going to take it anymore. And so but unlike you, we're not going to anonymously trash people on social media or commit violence and shoot people. What we're going to do is vote you out of power.
Anger is natural, but revenge is a trap. That's how the left wants you framed. The answer isn't violence, it's turnout. Register, vote, build, win, the only scoreboard that matters. If they bet on you burning out, prove them wrong. If you value honest analysis and real conversations, make sure to subscribe. Hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. What did we miss and what should we tackle next? Your voice makes this community stronger. Let's keep pushing for the truth together.